Hey everyone, Casey Franchini here with Brick by Brick Wealth. We are here at Michael Zuber's One Rental at a Time amazing event. Today, I'm bringing to you a brand new person. This strategy that he implements in real estate is really unique, but it's taken the real estate investing world by storm. So we're going to talk to Brannon Potts. He owns 12 properties in Texas, and he uses the build-to-rent method. So stick around because we're going to learn some really fun new things here. So, Brannon,
Yes.
why don't you start off and tell us kind of a little background history? How did you grow up and end up in Texas? How'd that all work? And what got you started of thinking you want to invest in real estate?
It started with my parents. I grew up in a family. My parents built every house that we lived in. My mom did all the design. Even people came, she did a lot of interior design. She, with graph paper, drew the floor plans. And so I watched that going forward, and I really have that mindset of design, but I'm also a numbers person, so I have a little bit of both. And I enjoyed the process, learned a little bit with my parents. Then I went into doing it myself, building every house we've ever lived in and designing those. So when I went into it as natural, I knew a little bit. I've learned a lot more with every build. You're still learning on every build. And for me, I like to have, I call it my fingerprint on it. I want to say, not that I purchased that, but I built it from the ground up and put my touches to it and my thoughts and my designs to it. So I'm thinking every house I have got on graph paper and designed.
Oh, I love that. So what do you do for your regular day job?
Regular day job, I have been in finance or real estate all my life. So I started out in banking in my 20s, went to be, well, from banking to a CFO of a company. And then, well, in banking, I was became the vice president of commercial lending. I was the one doing the underwriting of everybody's real estate request. And I said, I don't want to be the lender because who's making the money? It's the person getting the request. And then underwriting them and even checking on appraisals. And then I went into real estate sales for a period of time for 12 years. Recently sold that business. Kept the property management company, staying in line with what I knew, and then began building my portfolio just 5 years ago. I was 48. So you can do this in a later stage in life and move rapidly.
Now, most people, they start off buying long-term rental properties, and you do build-to-rent for long-term rentals, correct?
Yes.
And most people start off and they buy an existing home. Why brand new homes? How did you get into that mindset and that idea?
Two reasons. I love the build. Doesn't even feel like work to me at all. I look forward to going there every day, looking at what's going on. But then I was looking at, for the long-term perspective, I'm doing this, yes, for my wife and I, but I'm doing this for future generations in our family, down to the plan is to have a multifamily property for every kid in our will.
Love that.
You're getting this property, you're getting this property, you're getting this property, and the remainder you can figure out how to sell or split so that we build them that long-term wealth.
Love that.
But I wanted to own them now when they're brand new so that when we're gone 25 years from now, 30 years from now, they're only getting ones that are not too old.
Yeah, that's brilliant because, we buy long-term rental properties and the ones we're buying are 1950s, 1970s. And it's so true. Like when you mentioned to me, well, I want new properties because when I give them to my kids in 20, 30 years, they'll be 30-year-old properties, not 50 and 70-year-old properties. Right. It's like, what a genius idea because, yeah, we all want generational wealth. Well, most people do. I know there are a lot of celebrities who want to tell, my kids aren't getting squat. And I'm like, that is, really? I mean, really?
I don't want them to totally know.
Right.
Because one time we had a story. So we're all in the car, and I can't remember which one of our kids said, Dad, how many properties do we own? Yeah. So I did that pause, and I said, we don't own anything. Your mom and I own these properties. Yep. But I wanted them to understand we don't want, if we're going to give this wealth to our kids, we see groups that I call them waiters. They're waiting for their family to pass away, and that's their retirement plan. I made the decision myself. I'm in control of my own destiny, and I'm going to have that wealth that I create. So if I get anything from my family, it's a extra
It's
blessing.
just a cherry on top.
I don't need it. And I want my kids to earn it that way too.
Yep. Yeah, I'm with you. We, my daughter, she's 13, and she's just now in the past couple of years been waking up to real estate and investing and making money in alternate ways besides a job, because we talk about it all the time. And was it just a couple of weeks ago or so, she said, "Mommy, I want to grow up and be rich and do nothing like you." And I said, "What?" I'm like, okay, you were really small when you missed out on the late nights at the properties and daddy gone till 2 a.m. after work, working at the rental property, and the sacrifices that we made, hauling all of our lawn equipment into the back of our car and mowing lawns and trimming hedges. And I mean, I have a huge cut on my leg from my hedge trimmer. Did you miss all that? Did you forget? It's sacrifice. And we didn't get there by just doing nothing. Yeah. So, I'm like, we have to have a talk.
It's that iceberg effect. They're seeing the peak when 90% plus is below the waterline, all the hard work. And yes, they don't remember because they're young. And ours don't remember it, times where I was pacing the floor. This was in the early real estate. I'm getting into real estate in 2010. And I'm saying, what am I doing wrong? How can I not get these properties to sell? I didn't have a lot of context. And the hard times were literally, we were praying for a contract to pay the bills for the next year. All of us, those are good, hard, but good times.
Yeah,
we learn a lot.
I think we all, for the most part, most of us, want our kids to grow up wealthier and happier and better off than we are. But we do have to teach them that it doesn't come from nothing. Right. And you have to work your butt off too. So working on that with them. The other day we had a property for rent, and we did an open house style. And my 11-year-old, I said, "Who wants to come to the open house?" And the little one's like, "No, I want to play video games." I'm like, "All right, you're 7, fine." And my daughter's like, "I don't want to go to more rental stuff." Okay. So the middle son said he wanted to go. So we're killing some time in the kitchen, waiting for people to show up. And I was like, well, now is a good homeschooling, time to explain what real estate can do for you. So I turned a piece of paper upside down or, over. And I said, look, when you're 16 years old, right? We live in Tennessee. When you're 16 years old, you're going to get a job. You're going to get a job, making $10 an hour at a pizza place. If you're lucky, we have minimum wage is low in Tennessee. And when you're 16, you're not going to be getting a $15 an hour job.
We are the same in Texas. So
yeah. Yes. So I'm like, you're going to be making $10 an hour. And let's say you're going to go to school or whatever, and you have 4 to 5 hours, maybe 3 to 4 hours after school every day you can work. So maybe 12, 15 hours at the most you can work per week, making $10 an hour. It'll take you a whole month to make $500. I'm like, or you can start saving now and have a plan to buy one rental property and make $500. He's like, oh. Yeah, I think I like that plan. Because when you can have time to, ride your bike and do all the things if you're having to hustle for $10 an hour. You have to think smart. So start thinking now, Jace. I told him on how you can start making money. I know you're only 11, but, the sooner you can invest, the better. And wouldn't it be so nice if you could just be rich and lazy and just own a bunch of real estate starting sooner? You started in your 40s, right? We started in our 30s. And if I would have started in my 20s, we'd be in a different place.
Yes.
So
I'm doing the same thing with my kids. They're a little older. My daughter's 18, about to turn 19. Our 17-year-old and 13-year-old, we've had them read Rich Dad, Poor Dad for kids. And the other day, I'm talking to my middle daughter, and we were talking about debt and good debt versus bad debt. And my son from his room, good debt is ones you don't pay for. Your renters pay. So it's coming there and teaching them. They've got into our property management business. Yes. We're having them doing some of the inspections. My oldest daughter, my middle daughter and son do some of the cleanings. It's also to help them get context to life.
Right.
To see it's not all where we live, it's all different things, but we also say each of them have eternal value. Those people in the lower price points and they have the same value, and we should treat them that way.
Yeah,
I'm trying to teach them all of these things and learning how my youngest son's going to start mowing lawns for us this summer. He's paying for his own lawnmower and weed eater.
And how old is he? He's 14.
He's 13.
13. He's the 13-year-old. Okay.
So we're having him start with just a few lawns that I'm going to teach him how to mow lawns, but he's buying his own equipment. I'm not giving that to him. He's using his own savings because we're trying to teach them good habits to be self-starters themselves. It's not all given to you.
Yeah, my daughter.
Because it wasn't to all of us.
No one gave me anything. And I got a job when I was 16 years old, and I just felt guilty asking my parents for money. You know, they paid for my books for my school and things like that. But I didn't go to big school and take on tons of student debt. I went to a state school that we could pay off, and nowadays even those are expensive.
Yes.
Never mind. But teaching kids responsibility like that, I think, is really important. My 13-year-old daughter, she's got so many ideas. She wants to start a bread baking business. She wants to start a YouTube nail channel because she's really good at nail designs. And I said, great, but you're going to be buying your own YouTube equipment, even if it's like a stand, right? And you can use your phone. Now, of course, for Christmas, I bought her everything. So there went that thought out the window.
Stake
but
in
I
it.
said, the next stuff, I go, all your extra, if your new nail polish, you're going to buy it, and you're going to keep a spreadsheet, and you're going to keep a spreadsheet of expenses, and you're going to charge your friends $20 once in a while, instead of always doing it for free, just to get the idea of how much things cost and bringing in some money. And her recent thing is, well, I want to buy a rental property when I'm 18. She's like, Mom, I'm going to have to make $800 a month. That's what she said to me just before I left to come here.
They're
and I said, I'm glad you're thinking that way. So let's think about how you can make $800 a month. I mean, that's kind of a lot for her, but she's homeschooling. She could probably figure it out. But the fact that she's even thinking about that, I was not thinking about how I could make money when I was 13.
Right.
And there's more to life than making money when you're a kid, be a kid. But it's getting.
But that's an entrepreneurial spirit.
It is. And I just can't help myself.
Yes.
But anyways, okay, so let's get back on track. All right. I love your build-to-rent model. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know what it is. Personally, and I've asked you hundreds of questions over the past couple days, outside of this.
Yes.
Because I'm so interested myself because it's so unique. I've never built a thing in my life. We buy long-term rental properties. They're existing homes. We can fix them up, and my husband can pretty much rebuild a house that's already there. But how does it, let's start with maybe the basic steps for doing the build-to-rent model.
I was thinking on this, and we'll get to, I also want to talk about my channel too, or at least give the name of it. But,
absolutely.
It starts with relationships, as with anything in investing. I would say the first start is getting a relationship with a builder. You need to know a builder and interview them. You're checking their reputation too. Finding a good quality builder would probably be the first start with it, because you want to know what is your costs up front. If you're going to get into it, before you can even look at land, you need to know what it's going to cost to build. So you're needing to know the costs up front with this builder. What I'm using is a cost plus model. With that, I've got a good builder that really works hard on reducing the costs. Even though it's reducing his paycheck too, that's a good long-term relationship. He has got a good reputation. The next would then be to know the rents. Because then if you're looking at the land, you know what the rents are going to be. I look at it as, if I'm going to get, for example, $2,100 a month, I know I can build this property because I have the floor plan on this single family. I can build it for $205,000 in our area in Texas, and I can get $2,100 a month in rent. I know it will cash flow with the portion I need down. And what I love about the build-to-rent model is, hey, if you can buy, say you were buying on the resale side, and you could buy every property at a 20% discount, how quickly would you get ahead?
Well, heck yes.
And that's what I'm doing with build-to-rent, right. But I'm also getting them brand new. I'm able to build them at about 80 cents on the dollar.
That's
I get
amazing.
That instant equity, and then I'm able to rent them out in cash flow and only put a portion down. Usually 5% if it's got 20% equity, or whatever you're wanting to put down to start with.
Yeah, that was really interesting to me when we were discussing this earlier. So maybe go a little bit more detail about it. You mentioned that on some properties, so traditionally, right, you have to put, let's say it's a $100,000 property, you have to put $25,000 down. What would be if you were, say, building a $100,000 property, just for easy numbers, and you were doing the build-to-rent model, how much cash would you be putting into that when's all said and done?
The minimum, if it's going to appraise, to get the 30-year mortgage afterwards, because this is long-term rental investing, you would only have to put 5% down.
Okay. And what about the land that you have to buy?
Usually I would buy my land up front, and I'm looking for infill lots. And what I've been able to do is find some that were built, subdivisions that were built 20, 30 years ago. So they have that baked in cost of the utilities from a long time ago, and have been able to find these lots. For me, I'm looking for lots that work in Texas, $15,000 to $20,000.
So lots are $15,000 to $20,000, and you have to pay cash for those.
I'm paying cash for those up front, but then we build, and that's the upfront equity with the bank. And then when we get to closing, they're doing an appraisal and saying, for the example, say it appraised for $250,000. Well, then the loan has to be for 75% is $187,000. I might have only had costs in it of 205, these recent builds. So I'm only putting a small amount down, but I have a lot of equity from day one, and they cash flow.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, and this is probably a side note or not really part of the equation, but how do you go about knowing that a certain piece of land that you're going to be able to build on it, right? And that it's going to work out? I mean, that's a lot of, like, you're buying land cash that, how do you know it's going to work, that piece of land? And then how do you know that you're going to be able to build on it? I mean, I know that there's zoning and all of that, but
I'm looking at the zoning. I mean, if we're looking in a subdivision, let's just say that.
Okay.
Most of those are single family.
so you'll buy you'll see a subdivision, there'll be like an empty lot, and there's been no
Sitting
house
there for a
there
long time.
forever, and you're gonna buy that lot and put a new home, even when existing homes might be older.
Right.
Okay.
And there'll be a good mix of some new construction and some that have been there for a while. I'm looking at all of that. And what I'm looking at also to help with the equity, I think multiple ways. I think if I do think contingency and multiple plans, if I got it wrong on the rents, I could sell it and have this equity. I look at cities and say, what's the average or median price? I want my properties to be 20% less than the median because it's much easier to sell them if I have to go that route.
Okay, so worst case scenario, you're thinking, I'm gonna buy land, I'm gonna build a house that I know I can at least sell.
At the very least, I can sell the rents. I know what the rent market is. So I'm looking at all of this research up front, and I know with the builder, my costs, what they're going to be. So I have that already put together, and just then looking for the right property, the right land. I'm looking at the elevation and the differences in the elevation. If it's got a lot of elevation, you're going to have to do a lot of dirt work. What is the lot prep for that lot? You want it relatively flat so that your cost to clear it and get it ready to pour the foundation is minimal, because I try to keep those within. On the build, it's running around 13 to 16% of the cost of the build is that lot and lot development.
Okay, and so you're really focusing on finding the empty lot in an existing neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay, so you're not like going out to the country or the outskirts and looking for big land to build like a subdivision of rentals.
I want to make it simple in my underwriting of lots that have already been developed with all the utilities there. It's a much easier path and a more safe path. But even in the build, I will put a contingency number. So when I'm giving the number to the bank, I actually do inflate it a little bit because we want to be safe, that I'll put another 5-6% in what I think the real costs are going to be. And I'm making sure that it will even work with that extra 5-6%. And anything better than that, the numbers are even better. I really want to be safe. I'm in my 50s now. I don't want to make a lot of mistakes. I don't have time. And I'm trying to be very good with my money. And it's worked so far, even down to I've done some multifamilies too. I have a few multifamily lots and one more to go next year that I've got another multifamily to build 4 units on.
How exciting. So have you found so let's talk about a little bit about cash flow. Existing home, you're going to have old things to fix, right? You're going to have, depending upon your deal structure, good or bad cash flow or barely making it cash flow. How healthy is your cash flow doing build to rent?
If you want to look at cash on cash return, which is the way I look at
Yep.
it, my average is almost embarrassing to say. I'm over 20%.
That's insane.
Over 20%, and it's brand new. And I put in there the cost for repairs, maintenance, capital expenditures, and vacancy. Now, if it was an older property, I would allocate more, 15 to 20%, depending on the condition of the property, because every property has its specific scenario. With new, because repairs don't typically start happening till about 7, 8 years in is when you start having a few little repairs, and usually smaller. I start out allocating between 7% and some of them at 8%, and every other year I add a percent. But I'm building up this reserve when I don't even have repairs yet. And usually with a builder, you get a 1-year warranty. So the first year, I'm already holding back those reserves, but it's under warranty for a year.
So you're still getting a traditional builder warranty, even though you're not buying in a subdivision or, with the come view the, the
Right. It's still
Okay.
that builder warranty.
Okay. I've never built a home, so I asked the stupid
Yeah, no,
questions.
those are great questions.
Stupid
Yes.
questions.
And
Yeah.
you're talking to your builder. That's where it starts, is you've got to find a good builder. That is step one.
Yep.
Because if you finding the lot and say you're purchasing it and you don't have a builder, you don't know your costs, you could have made a mistake. And so it is the builder relationship first before the land purchase. But then you
Okay.
can go into confidence when you're looking at land and knowing, okay, here's my costs. It's less opportunity for error.
Well, let's go into builders for a second. What would be some characteristics that you look for when trying to pick a builder? Just like how, in regular long-term rentals, we pick our team members. We've got our realtors and our property managers and our contractors. And, I teach that stuff, and I got a slew of checklists that those people must have to get the okay from me. What type of criteria or things do you look for when choosing a builder?
I'm looking for somebody that's been building for a while. They have a great reputation. I live in a county that I grew up in, so I know some of these reputations. That's the first part, is they've been building for a while, have a reputation. They're usually it's not the big builders. They're doing their tract homes and all that. I'm looking for a smaller builder they're building 10 to 12 houses a year at most. And they need that long-term business. And I've developed that relationship that I'm going to continue to work with them. And I even ahead of time, I sat down with my builder the other day and I'm telling, okay, here's when we're going to build the next multifamily and the next single family, because he needs to know too, saying, okay, I've got these in the pipeline. So we sit down, we communicate quite often, and he's willing to work with me because I'm not hounding him all the time. We've developed, I almost call it a partnership. We've been building multiples, but I've been through one other builder, not that he was bad, but I've been through a couple of builders, and I found this builder, we work well together, and he tries to save me money. And his cost plus model, he sends me the actual invoices from the vendors.
Nice.
I can see it. And I know with confidence he is doing me right. And I refer him out to others. And I can do that in confidence because of the relationship I've had and the experience I've had with him.
So first step would be find a builder and maybe talk about what their price per square foot is for a certain type of home.
Yeah, you could, even if you have a floor plan, you can say, hey, can you give me a bid on this so I know my price? I'll go find the lot. If you could get that up front, or most builders can give you a pretty close general price. Mm-hmm. Now, you're in control of that, of what finishes you put in could raise or lower the price. And what I do that with him, we've gotten a comfort. We know it now. We're using the same floor plan over and over again, replicating it. I do put some, I call it value engineering in it. Mm-hmm. I'm looking for a few nice things that cost minimal dollars, but
make a big difference.
That make a big difference to the renter, have a bigger perceived value.
What are some of those things?
One little one I have to share. This only costs $70.
Yeah.
Shutters.
Shutters.
I go
Like
to
plantation blinds, plantation
well,
shutters?
no, to Lowe's, and I'll buy those little shutters. They're vinyl
The ones on the outside of the house?
on the
Okay,
outside of the house for $70, putting shutters on windows. It's the curb appeal.
Yeah.
Even tenants want good curb appeal.
And you guys do stucco homes in Texas, or
We're
what's your
doing siding.
siding? Okay.
And I've even picked, no, this is that things I learned from my mother. I'm picking color coordination. I used a color, and I know you're all into this too.
Yeah.
I picked a color from Sherwin-Williams' Color of the Year from a few years ago. It was called Evergreen Fog. And then they have a color palette around it that looks very good. It's in style with a black and a white and this green. I really look at design even to the interior. Then I match colors to the island and to the backsplashes. It works.
Because when people go in to look at a
Design.
house, they're going through and they're seeing the whole thing. So it's just like a
Yes.
big book that you want to all be cohesive.
And I've found when I'm competing with other rental properties, because I've put that effort into it, I'm getting about $100 more in rent
Oh, I love that.
for this effort. I'm making a return on this effort. I even had one renter said, we picked your house, even though it was more per rent of another, I think that was almost $150 because we could tell you personalized it, and we love the personalization to it.
That's key.
And signed a 2-year lease on it.
Heck yes. Congrats on
So
that.
it's those little things. We even have done. We only have one short-term rental. I call it is our crowning achievement. It was full-on design because it was on the beach. Every room from ceiling to floor designed with each room had a theme, because we figured when you're going to the beach, you want it beachy and nice. And so every room has a theme. It was, if you don't mind, the name of the house is
what is
called
it?
Turtle Ranzas.
Turtle Ranzas.
Turtle Ranzas
Okay.
in
Where
Port
city is it?
Aransas, Texas.
Port Aransas. Okay.
My daughter named
I love
it
that.
when she was 8.
Oh, cute.
She came up with this name and we loved it. And we said, we're looking for Turtle Ranzas.
Turtle
And of course, the
Ranzas.
house is green from the exterior.
Do you have it all themed too? With
Every
inside
room
and-
is themed,
Yeah.
from turtles to surfboard room to seashell room to anchor room. Each have a theme, and it's that one is as designed as I've ever built.
Yeah.
But we still put some of that same touch even on the rental properties up near Fort Worth. We're putting some of that in there with a little bit of shiplap that is a real classy and really popular in our area. We're doing some of that and making that personal touch that even renters of a home want.
Yeah. What would you say now? We're in a time right now where rentals are a little slow. It's taking a little longer to get properties rented right now. Do you feel like because yours are new that they rent a little faster?
Two things. Yes, the renters want the same thing even homeowners want. They love the new, shiny. But then even with that, there are a lot of new ones up for rent too. So how do I stand out differently? And so that's why I put a lot of that value engineering in it. Some of the things that we like that say this stands out, I will say my wife and I, because we remember the hard times, we think if times got tough, would we want to live there? And so we build it with that mindset, controlling and holding our cost accountable. But we would be proud to live there and would be willing to live there. And we're proud of the product we're offering to our renters because we do care about those renters.
I love it. So we've got, for step one is find a builder, understand your costs to what it costs to build a home. Then you go find the land, and you want the total cost to be, did you say 13 to 15%, or the total land cost to be?
Land cost to be 13
to
to 15%
of the total value of the home.
of the cost to build it.
Cost to
Yes.
build, not build, not the improvement plus the land, or just to build, cost to build.
It represents 15% of the entire cost.
Okay.
Yes.
Overall. Okay.
Overall.
Well, that's a good, back of the napkin rule of thumb, just to see if, hey, is there anything here? Because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in Memphis and I'm not going to find $15,000 lots.
Right.
You know,
and you're
in an
looking at rents
established
too.
neighborhood.
Rents are
Yeah.
a piece of it, and I call it reverse engineering it
Right.
to see if those numbers work.
So what would be the next step after that?
Next step after that is you also want to have a good relationship with a banker. I prefer a local or regional bank. It's still that relationship, and you have those relationships with those banks, and you're finding out what the rate is going to be, because construction loans are considered a higher risk than a purchase loan because they don't know the cost and there could be delays. It's a little bit riskier, so that rate is half a point, maybe a point higher during the construction phase. So you need to know what that rate is, and that should be a part of your construction cost, is your interest carry while you're building the property. And then you're finishing up, usually construction time. It all depends on the weather too.
Yep.
When you're dried in, but 3 to 6 months, I figure 6, I figure worst case, and I'm figuring what that interest carry will be as I'm making draws on the construction. And then we're going to a 30-year mortgage and closing that out. I also put a higher rate even on the 30-year, saying, will it cash flow? What will the numbers be? This last one, I put in 8%. I was thinking it might have been there.
You don't know.
I thought it was because we're 3 to 6 months out.
Yeah, right.
You don't know. You want to be safe in putting worst case scenarios so that if it's better, the cash flow is even better.
Yeah. Okay, so you've got your builder. You kind of know what it might cost to build a house. You found a piece of land. You go to the bank and you say what?
I usually go to the bank even ahead of time.
Okay.
I will meet with them. Bankers are conservative. They don't like to be blindsided. So I would go 6 months even before I'm ready to do this. Sometimes even a year out, I'm talking to the banker and I'm saying, hey, here's the project I'm working on. What would you be willing to do? So I know all these things ahead of time.
Excellent.
How much do you want in me to have down on the property? I have a bank that's offering me 80% of a fully finished appraised value. I had one. You remember the slogan, when banks compete, you win.
Yes.
I talked to several banks, and one bank was willing to do 85% of appraised value. So I didn't have a lot of money in, but so that when they're ready, when I say, here's the cost, I'm giving them the actual cost. Here's what the whole lot cost. Here's my construction cost. They're ready to go. The yes has already happened.
Okay.
Because I've talked to them ahead of time, and I know what their guidelines are.
And so they're giving you a loan based upon a future value. How is that value determined?
They'll end up getting an appraisal done, looking at your floor plan, looking at even your finishes. You're giving all that detail to them, and they're appraising it, looking at that, making that assumption it's going to be built as you're describing it.
And so then how is the project funded? Are you expected to pay out of pocket for all the construction costs, or is that something that the bank lends on?
Every bank's a little different in how they do their draws. I send in a draw request, and most banks, it's after the work has been done. And this is working with your builder. How do they do theirs? Our draw with our builders, after the work's been done, he sends me his invoice with all the categories of what he's done. I send that on to the bank. They do an inspection. Yes, this work's been done. That matched with the cost what you estimated or less. A lot of times I can save a few dollars. And then they put that and pay that out either to the builder, or they'll pay it out to you, and then you're paying the builder. It just depends on the structure of the loan.
So then when the property is all completed and finished, you go, hey, bank, it's all done. And then they do the appraisal and give you your loan, your 30-year loan?
Yes, if it's with the same bank or you're working with a different
Okay,
lender.
so you can have one bank for just a construction loan and then a second bank to do the 30-year loan.
Yes, so then they at the second bank is then doing another appraisal, because they have to do, it's a separate bank. They're doing their appraisal, and they're saying they're going to pay off that construction loan. And sometimes we've been able to cash out some money, and one property we have no money in it. So
that's amazing. So what do you make per year on these rentals?
We're still in the early stages.
Right.
It takes about 10 years, but I look at that cash on cash return.
Yep.
The first ones, we learn a lot. It's always the first ones, that firsthand learning. I'm looking for a minimum of $200 per door. I've made a decision just recently, as I'm a little older, I want to start at a higher starting point, but I'm only putting in 12%.
That's amazing. And it's brand new, so you're
And
not
it's
going to
brand
have all these
new.
huge expenses.
And so we're starting out between $350 to $400, depending on the lease.
Right.
But I have those assumptions and what I know of history. We're starting out at a higher profit per door, but then also builds that momentum. We're not living out of it. That money goes into a real estate fund account to buy the next properties.
I love it. And then, one thing we forgot about when we first started was rent appreciation, right? So,
Yes.
you might have the 200 to 500 a month now, but every other year, if you raise rents every other year, that's just going up and up and up. And it's like you said, 7 to 8 years before your first leaky faucet.
We did that, and so we started out with allocating 7%. We've got a few properties. Our first property was 2021.
Yeah.
Our net worth at that time was, vast majority of it was in our house. We were only at $300,000. And today, we just finished it up, 2024. I do mine at December 31st, $2.4 million.
Holy muffins, Brandon. That's amazing.
With only less than $150,000 of my own cash.
Everybody listening to that? Yeah, that's the
that
new
is the
way.
truth.
This is the new way.
It's making that equity. We have that forced equity, if you want to call it that, from buying and from building it versus like a burr. You're going to have forced equity in that too, because you've done the sweat into it of the remodel, and now it's worth more. I'm doing it same through the build to rent. I'm getting that forced equity sometimes. Most times it's 20%.
And the fact that this works in Texas, which, I teach new investors how to buy their first rental property, and they're always existing homes. I don't know anything about your model, but those properties, they are costly to get into. You need to put 20, 25% down. You're going to have repairs going down the line. And it's like, wow, you can build a house, and it's just scary because nobody knows how to do it. People aren't out building homes all the time.
And I would say go slow. First one, do a smaller project, take your learning curve, because the next one, even with me building my own personal house several times, what I did on the first one, because I had enough experience, I built a fourplex first. I would not recommend that being your first one every time. You'd have to have the right experience. But what I've learned from that first one to today, I would build it so much differently and would cash flow a little bit more. Be safe the first one. Take that base hit, if we're going to use a baseball analogy. Get the single so that you don't have as much risk of losing, because it's a different type of way to real estate invest. It takes some unique skills in knowing your costs.
I love it. So let's say somebody's just like super excited watching this and they want to give this a shot. What would be your biggest piece of advice that you could give to somebody to help them set them up on the road to success?
I think primary number one is getting a builder first. Yeah. That is the foundation of the entire plan, is having a good builder and knowing your costs.
And ones that have maybe done build to rent before, would that be important, or just?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
No, it's just some that have built single family, maybe some small multifamily, 1 to 4. That's your builder.
Awesome. Brannon, thank you so much. Why don't you tell everybody where they can find you? I know you have a YouTube channel. It's on your shirt if everyone can see it, but tell them where because you do YouTubes on all this stuff all the time.
I
Tons
do.
of value.
I'm building that. It's still a very young channel. I've chosen to do it very authentic. I don't edit my videos at all. I'll make mistakes in even my wording, but I'm just being who I am. I want to help people. The reason I do it is I wanted to make an impact. I'm in my 50s now, and your mindset shift, it just changes your mindset. And I said, I want to do this for my kids and for others, to share my experiences in life and try to help others get there. It's the name of the channel. It's Build to Rent Investing in Financial Talk, and it's build the number 2 rent, all one word, investing in financial talk.
I love it. Well, thank you so much. This is Casey Franchini with Brick by Brick Wealth. Go ahead and get both of us a follow, and see you guys next time.